Okay, we're live. We're recording. So I want to welcome each one of you to the accountability call tonight. We're going to try to hit this for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to just go on and put some things into action. So I want to welcome each one of you. I'm thankful for each one of you. I'm glad that you're here, and we're going to have some fun tonight. Now, I don't like to talk the whole time, but I will if I have to. So I like some participation. I like some the crowd to get involved, to be a little lively. So I don't like to listen to myself talk the whole time. So one thing we're going to do is in the chat down below. One thing is any victories that you guys have had this week. Any victories that you guys have had, maybe even in the last 2 weeks. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and put some of those victories in the chat thread below. It's an encouragement for everybody to see, and it's just a fun thing to do. What we're going to be talking about tonight is the topic is fear. Did Megan tell you guys we were talking about fear? Did you guys know that already or not? No? Okay. So we're going to be talking about fear, and who has fear? Who doesn't have fear? What do we do with fear? What does fear do with us? What things are we actually avoiding because we're afraid of them? Those are some of the things that we are going to talk about tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. I'm going to confess something to you. If you are fearful of something, if there's something that you're facing or something that you're running from because you're afraid of it, you are normal. I just want you to know that you're okay. We're all in the same boat. I just want you to know that, okay? It's something we all deal with, and I think it's important to, first thing is to just let everybody know you're not on an island, okay? You're not by yourself. You're not special. I'm sorry, you're not. We all deal with this issue. Some people just hide it better than others, okay? So don't let anybody think you that this isn't, or don't let anybody make you think that fear is not something that they are faced with at some point. We all are. We all are. And when you work in a business like Plexus, where you're dealing with people, where you're dealing with negativity, or just there's a lot of things we deal with in this business that cause fear to well up, right? So one thing I'm incredibly thankful for with Plexus is that it really has exposed some fears I didn't know I had. In the business, in my comfort life, the things I was good at, the things I was used to, I wasn't facing new fears. Now with Plexus, I'm facing new fears, and I'm facing them often. So I'm incredibly thankful for that. So one thing I would like to talk about real quick, now this is going to be scary too. Who is dealing with fears in light of their Plexus business? This is in light of Plexus business. Who's dealing with some fears? I can be patient. I'll just sit here. Not everybody at once.
I'll go.
Okay.
I think you said it this weekend when you were in Pella. And it kind of nailed it on the nose for me too, that one of my fears is commitment. Honestly, like commitment to this. And I am like 1,000% committed to the products, and I'm just speaking like honestly here, but and I fully believe in the business and all of that, but I am fearful of like things, and not having anybody running with me directly under me. I mean, I understand it's hard, and I keep looking at all of that, but it's also like that, okay, I am, like I need to commit, or I need to be content, and anyway, So I think you like that mention of commitment. I'm like, that's it. That's like what I'm fearful of as well. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Megan and I and the kids had a chance to go to Iowa this last weekend. We had a great time meeting with some teammates out there. We had a blast and talked about some of these things. And like Lisa said, one thing that I mentioned when I was out there, this is something that I personally have realized about myself recently, is that I fear failure. So one of my defense mechanisms is I just won't commit. So because if I don't commit, I can't fail, because I really wasn't 100% anyway. So it's just like this weird thing I've developed over 42 years of life. That's my defense mechanism for dealing with my fear of failure. And some of those things I'm noticing, these fears, come from things that happened when I was young. Some of these things come from words that were said when I was a young boy. So they're really exposing a lot of things in my life but I'm facing them. And I think that's one of the keys with whatever fear that you have. One thing I'm learning is I can't give fear a lot of time. If I do, then it'll paralyze me. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Where you think about these things and then it just gets bigger, 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 and then you do nothing. You're paralyzed. I don't believe that is what fear is designed for. I think fear is designed, it's either designed to make us paralyzed to do nothing, or it's created to cause us to be overcomers. Which one are we going to be? I want to be an overcomer. I am an overcomer. We all are overcomers, and so one thing is we have to overcome these things, these fears. One thing I talked about out there, and I'll just throw this as another fear and then I'll be quiet and let some other people talk, but looking at a message, if I get a message on my phone from an old customer, from a new customer, from somebody I sent a cold message out to, I see the message and I think, whoa, I don't want to answer that because I don't know if it's going to be bad. Well, I mean, it could be bad. It could be bad. Yeah, well, it could be good. And so I get this fear, and then it paralyzes me. So now what I do, I get a message, I'll just answer it. I answer it. I just open it up and look at it. I face the fear quickly. Get it over with. If I'm going to take a beating, let's just make it happen. Do it quick. So anyway, that's one thing I'm noticing with fear for myself. What about someone else? Anybody else dealing with any fears in your Plexus business? Nobody? It's just Lisa and I are struggling here with with fear, apparently. Okay, so here's the question I have. Who fears what other people think of him? Anybody? Yeah. Who fears what other people are saying about you behind your back? Who fears how people are going to take how they're going to take your cold call, your cold message? What if you hit that next big rank? Do you fear what other people think about the amount of money that you might be making, or your bonus, or a Lexus, or whatever? I don't know. There's been some doozy rumors about us here in this small town. So anyway, what other fears? Anybody else? Anybody else? If not, I'll Keep talking. Okay, I'm going to keep talking. So here's the question. You all know what your fears are. Some of you fear talking in public. Some of you fear talking or confessing things in front of other people. So the question is, with these fears that we are all facing, and once again, we're all in this together. There's not a one of us that doesn't come face to face with fears. We all do. The question, though, is, and maybe it comes down to commitment, but what are we going to do with that fear? Are we going to let it run our life? Are we going to let it paralyze us? Are we going to stand up and say, enough? Stand up, face it. A lot of times, some of the things we fear is truth. So we avoid it. We avoid it. Some of these things, if we fear something, we avoid it. So is there something even in your Plexus business that you're avoiding? I don't know. I can't really answer that question for you, but we have to it comes down to just making a decision. When it comes to this issue, there's one story I think of more than any other story, and it's the story of David and Goliath. And here you have Goliath, this giant warrior, a big problem, a fearful, menacing guy, a problem standing there face to face with the nation of Israel, and all these warriors are quaking in their boots. And then here comes this boy who doesn't even have armor on. He comes out with his loincloth and his sling and some stones. And I've heard some cool things about those stones. Maybe I'll share here in a minute. But, and what did he do? He ran towards the giant. He ran towards the problem. And he knocked the problem down. Now, one of the differences between David and the rest of those Israelite warriors, he didn't have all of the experience that those guys had. He didn't have the muscles they had. He didn't have the equipment they had. What did he have, though? The one thing that David had over those other warriors was he had a why. He was committed. He was committed to defending God. He was committed to protecting God's name in that story. So the question comes down to, when we're faced with a fear, we're faced with something like this, are we committed? What are we committed to? If we're committed to going diamond, then those things we're going to have, or whatever it is, emerald or ruby or gold, it doesn't really matter, silver. We're going to have to just stand up, and we're going to have to say enough. I am not going to let the fear of somebody who's already talking bad about me stop me from hitting my goals. That's a crazy way to live. That's called slavery, guys. We're enslaved by the thoughts of other people. We're enslaved by the fears of things that might not even be true. So fear. Let's talk about this real quick. My business coach, a friend of mine, he says that fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. Have you noticed that most of the things we're afraid of don't ever come true? Or when they do face them, they're really not that big of a deal. You think about looking back at, when you were a kid, and you think about, man, I jumped off this ledge, or I used to take my bike off this hill. And in my mind, I think of this, it seemed like a mountain. And then I go back through my hometown now, and I was driving through, and I looked, and I thought, it's like 2 feet. It's like not even 2 feet tall. It's like perspective. But we have to face these things, and whatever it is that maybe you're avoiding in your Plexus business, or even maybe in your personal life. This calls about the Plexus business, but this applies to all of life. Whatever that thing is, face it. Face it. You'll gain confidence. I don't know, you might get knocked down. Just get back up. Get back up and hit and face it again. You know, let's say it's a Facebook Live that really freaks you out. That's a big one for people. That's a big one. The first time you do it, you're probably going to get knocked down. It's going to go a little weird. You're going to seem a little awkward. Just get back up and do it again. And it'll go a little bit easier this time. And then get back up and you do it again. And then all of a sudden, you know, you can be in front of a video talking without any issues, wearing a cow shirt and an old hat. These videos used to freak me out. They just don't do it anymore. So you start to gain confidence once we tackle these fears, but they have to be tackled. There's one thing I've learned too in light of fear. Once you overcome one, you're not done. There's another one waiting. There's another one waiting, and it's probably bigger and it's probably scarier. But guess what? All these little victories count. They add up, and then you can tackle the next one. You can tackle the bigger one. And then you're on stage talking to a bunch of people at like the Plexus convention, and you knock that one out. And then you go, whatever the next one might be. They just keep getting bigger. And then all of a sudden at the end of life, you're faced with the big one. That's death. The big thing that a lot of people fear. So fear is something we all have to deal with. It's something we all have to deal with. So what about avoidance? Let's talk about that for a minute. We got a little bit of time. Is there something in our Plexus businesses we're avoiding? How about talking to people? Are we avoiding talking to people? That's a biggie. We need to talk to people. The cool thing about a subject like this is even if no one talks, you know the things that are holding you back. You know the roadblocks that are in your way, and you know the things that you're avoiding. So it's kind of a cool subject because, you know, okay, Melinda, let's see what Melinda has to say. I think we avoid talking to strangers face to face. Okay, legitimate fear. Talking to a stranger face to face. That's a legitimate fear. So how do we overcome a fear? How do we overcome a fear? Do it. Action. Absolutely. Engage. It's just kind of, a lot of my examples have to do with battle or warriors or soldiers or stuff. That's just the way my mind and my experience just lends me. So I, you know, in a situation that is bad, or even in a battle, everybody has a sense of fear. Some just engage. So I agree. I think that's one of the best ways to get over these fears is to engage. When you're engaged, you don't worry about the outcome as much anymore. You're too busy talking to the stranger or doing the Facebook Live or whatever it is. I fear talking to, okay, here's a totally different, I like this. So fear talking to strangers face to face. Okay, and then another one, here we go. I fear talking to people that are close to me. So interesting. It's interesting. So let's try to dig into this a little bit. Why are we afraid though? Why are we afraid of the strangers, or why are we afraid of the friends and family? There has to be a bigger reason why, other than I'm just scared. Why? What are we really afraid of?
I know mine's approval. Approval with my close family and friends.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think there's some people I think say, well, I don't really care what other people think. I think that person's a liar. I think we do care what other people think. There's no one wants to be rejected. Nobody loves rejection. I don't know who would love rejection. Maybe people do. But yeah, I fear that too. I want to be accepted and those things as well. But here's one thing that keeps me moving forward when that happens. My love for that person is greater than my fear of what they don't know really about plexus. So since we're talking about plexus, my love for that person is greater than my fear. So I share. I mean, it could really help that person. They may not understand right now. They may not understand for a long time, but so love is a good driver. Engagement, being engaged, doing the things, and I think love is a great motivator in the face of fear. Anybody else have anything to say about that? If somebody needs my products or needs my business, and I know that they need them, and I'm afraid of what they're going to think of me, so I don't tell them anything. Who do I really love? Myself.
Yeah, if I can just say something, I think just trying to remember that it's not about us, and that's a really hard thing to remember because we're just selfish people. And so yeah, like what you just said, like, do we really love those people if we're not willing to talk to them about it? And so that's just a really good perspective, I guess, to think about. And just, yeah, like I said, just remembering that it's not about us. And so if we don't say anything, they'll never have the opportunity because they don't know what they don't know, I guess. Yeah.
No, exactly. So what time is it here? Let's see, 7:24. Who else has something to say? I feel like someone else has something they want to share. Anybody? Amy, what you got?
Okay, so for me, I think it's uncertainty. Like, I'm okay with reaching out to people that I think either understand my heart or the business or the products. But like, I'm taking Bob Heilig's thing, and he talks a lot about just what holds us back is uncertainty. And yet it's ironic because we're really certain about nothing.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I think that's great. Uncertainty. We don't know. We fear what we don't know. From my perspective, even in light of Plexus, we fear what we don't understand. Also, I didn't understand network marketing, so I feared it. I hated it. We hate what we don't know, and so yeah, it can be scary. It can be scary. What is the person going to say? What is, what, we don't know. So we have to somewhat walk by faith, and we have to somewhat go back to why are we doing this? Why are we sharing it with this person to begin with? Or why are we doing this to even begin with? We have to go back to the basics. Maybe our intention is wrong sometimes. Could be. Maybe fear crops up because our intentions do get off base. Maybe they are self-motivated. It could be. So I think we need to pay attention to the fears, not ignore them. What do you got, Heather?
I think like what you just said, like when your mindset shifts to like, and this has happened to me lots of times, and even the beginning of this month, I have realized that a fear of mine is that when things aren't happening all the time like they were, in March when crazy stuff's going on, I have to like have faith that like things are still happening. But for me, I just realized that's a huge fear of mine. I'm like, oh my goodness, like why aren't people talking to me every day, and why am I not, but things are still happening, and I have to just have faith that like I've trained my team well, and that God's going to bring the people to us that really need what we have. And so that's just been, even this month, even the first, what is it today, day 9 or something, I have just been like fearful. And yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I was finally like, you know, maybe it was this morning, like, we're still doing this. We're still, and we need to pray. Like, I get out of the habit of doing that first and foremost. And it's like, no, like, you got to start there, and you got to have faith that God's going to lead it and guide it. And you just have to listen to him. And we can't, you know, I think it's easy to like fall into that selfishness of, well, what's this going to be for my business? Well, it's not about that. And so just having those mindset shifts, I suppose. So yeah, fear, man, I tell you, that Mel Robbins book, I'm only partway into it, but we have fears we don't even realize, and we have been conditioned to react in certain ways, and we don't even, it's like subconsciously. So great book, if I can recommend that. But anyway, that's all.
No, I agree with everything you just said. And it's something that we all, once again, nobody is on an island when it comes to fear. This is something that we all face and deal with. The question is, though, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to let it stop us in our tracks, or are we going to face it, and are we going to overcome it? That's really the question. So what's some things that we can do this week? I like also pray. Like Melinda said, I pray. If I'm afraid of something, I confess that, you know, Lord, I'm afraid of this thing. I don't know why, but I'm afraid of it. I'm being fearful. I shouldn't be fearful. You tell me not to be fearful, but I'm fearful. I told my son one time, he was talking about that, and I said, just tell the Lord you're scared. He's like, well, why would I do that? I'm like, well, he knows already. Might as well just be honest with him. He's like, yeah, you have a good point, Dad. I'm like, yeah, well, you know, just, confess it. And, you know, that's one thing I do when I'm faced with a fear, for sure. So anyway, so what are we going to do? What can we do going forward? We can pray. We can face these things. We can face them quickly. What else can we do? Encouragement from our team leaders helps. Yeah. How about sharing them with somebody? I'm not saying you need to share them here on Facebook Live necessarily, but it's with somebody. Say, hey, I'm really fearful here on this thing. I don't know why. Maybe it seems like a small thing, but for whatever reason, it's holding me back. I'm being fearful here. I'm afraid of this thing. I just did that with the Schwann's man. Do you have a Schwann's man where you're at? I just confessed one of my fears to the Schwann's man today, for crying out loud. But you know what? It felt good. He's a dear brother in Christ of mine. We trust each other. We love each other. And he said, hey, man, that's really great. And I'm like, actually, I'm scared of it. He's like, that's great. And it felt good. I know I got someone in my corner who's going to walk with me as I tackle this thing that I was talking to him about. It didn't have anything to do with Plexus, but something else. Building a house, building a big house. These things apply to every area of life. We're building a large house. I grew up in a trailer. I grew up in a double wide trailer, and now we're building like the biggest house in the county, and it's a real stretch for me. I'll be honest with you. It's I have fears. That's what I was talking to the Schwann's man about. I don't always confess to delivery guys, but sometimes. So that's another thing we could do. We could confess these things to someone. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's a good friend. Maybe it's one of your teammates. Maybe it's your upline. Whoever, someone you trust. That'd be a good thing to do. What else? What else can we do with fear? We can pray, we can confess it, we can engage quickly. We can share it with others. What else? Anybody else? Okay. Well, this is a lifelong subject. We're not going to get it all figured out tonight. So this is something that will keep cropping up as long as we are walking on this earth. So it's something we should probably start to consider. And okay, Brianna, find the root cause of each fear, then we're able to change our mindset. Very true. And it took me 42 years to figure out why I don't want to commit to things. That was about 3 weeks ago when the light bulb finally came on. Not only. Yes. Yeah, ask God to take it away. One of the promises of Scripture is that He will not leave us nor forsake us. That's in the fear also. So that should be comforting. That's comforting. He knows we're afraid. That's why He said, don't fear. I don't know, like 100 times in the New Testament. Fear not. Don't be afraid. Fear not. Don't be afraid. Constantly. That's just like a constant theme in the New Testament. So once again, we're not alone. So don't think you're on an island. Don't think you're on an island. Don't think you're alone, because you're not. We're all dealing with things, and we're in it together. And just because someone maybe is on stage or has a lot of rank, even in Plexus, they have fears too. They might be even bigger, by the time you get to that level. I mean, I don't know. But everybody's dealing with them, so don't think you're alone. That's one of the tactics of fear, I think, or the enemy a lot of times, is that they like you to think that that you're alone, that you're the only one that's dealing with things, and that's just not true. It's just not true. So, who else? Anybody else have anything to share before we get off here? Fear is evil and sneaky. It is. It is. Another thing we can do with fear too is we talk about prayer. Pray that God would expose fears, because a lot of them we don't even know. A lot of them we have programmed ourselves to ignore throughout the years, and we're really good at it. We have defense mechanisms that are so in our subconscious that we don't even know we do. So we could pray that God would expose those. That's a scary prayer, but it might help us to overcome the things that are holding us back from His best. So pray that our eyes are open and that we have the strength in Him to face them, to speak light in our dark. Yes, and to know that we don't have to face them alone. That's always an encouragement to me. So anyway, if you don't have anything else to share, I'm going to get off here. If anybody needs anything outside of this call in dealing with this issue, I am 100% available 24/7. I would love to talk with you or pray with you or help you with a strategy to overcome something, even in the business or whatever. Feel free to reach out anytime. I wanted to also announce, I don't know if you guys saw on, if you're on Jessica Heffley's team page, but she is having Bob Heilig speak tonight. I don't know if anybody saw that. So now when Jessica does something like this, it's the first 500 people usually. And after that, that's it. Now, she will probably record it. That's what Rob told me earlier. If you aren't in the first 500 people on the Zoom. So pay attention to that. It starts at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you can't get on it, maybe look for the recording. Bob Heilig spoke in Hawaii last September. He was excellent, and I don't know for sure or not, but you will more than likely see him at convention this year, I think. I don't know, maybe. So anyway, he's great, and he has a lot of great things to say, especially about systems and some other things. So that's all I got. Guys, have a great night. Go tackle the thing that's standing in front of you. Tackle it. Knock it out. Let's move. Let's go higher and further. See you guys.